I wanted Singaporeans to participate in the building of Singapore. All level, not just what I call the education level, all level, get them to participate. This is the country. I started with the idea of Heritage Studies Centre. The inspiration was the Political Studies Centre, which when I was a young civil servant, attended. I found it very useful because at that time, we didn't know very much about the history of Singapore, the fight against communism, against communalism, and how did Singapore come about to be independent. So I thought we should know the history of Singapore before you can consider the future of Singapore. The other part, which I thought was important, is the Brookings part, getting people to think about the future. So I thought the best way is to have some kind of a center or a policy study center to combine both. I did not want, nor did the government want, to fund everything. Because if that was so, it will lose its independence. At the same time, it's a new institute. Where do you get funds from? But we made it very clear this is an endowment given once off, and then IPS is on its own. So IPS must be able to justify getting funds from outside. My interaction would be, I think, mostly with Chan Heng Chee and Lee Chow Yang and Tommy Goh. I mean, these three I had frequent interactions. I would invite them for lunch in my office, maybe, I think, at least twice a year. Sometimes it could be more, depending on whether there were ideas to be discussed. Tommy Goh asked for my help to raise funds for IPS. And that's what many people wanted a patron for. So I told him, why not start a company association idea with IPS? Invite companies to join IPS as members and charge them a certain sum. But more importantly, that the funds alone, you are reaching out to people. So the role of the patron was to give prestige to the institute. I would regard myself as some kind of a sponsor for the institute, a mountain behind this, Kausan. So, any problems that they have, they come to me. I will sort it out with the government. I think maybe some areas where the research they want to do, and if they're not sure, they will test out on me. See, I was looking for people looking in from the outside. What is not being done? Where are the gaps? Especially gaps between ministries. Now, because people tend all the time, in every country, ministries will be working in silos. And problems were not limited to ministries alone. There will be national cross-ministry problems. So I was hoping IPS could see the gaps and then would advise me as patron and advise, of course, I was PM at that time as well, to see certain things which we were not seeing in the government. I was hoping that IPS could harvest ideas for the government, not necessarily on politics, on arts, on culture, on environmental issues. If they could harvest new ideas before government spotted them, that would be ideal. So I checked with my then press secretary and a few people. Should I do the interview, which the editor wanted to do? So of course, answer, not recommended, and I agreed, because I would not want anything to do with the book, because I wouldn't want to interfere. But in the article, there'll be some, not on me, but negative comments on the government policies and how it impacted on Singapore. And I think it's better, so people read it, there's credibility. If it's 80% good, 20% bad, I think it's a good book. Because I believe IPS must be independent, so you do whatever you want to do. There was a change of director to Janadas Devon, and I think the role of IPS changed. It became more relevant to the government. I set up a social lab, which I visited once. I gave him a briefing. There's more monitoring developments in Singapore, current developments. And in Singapore's context, unless you interact with the government, very difficult to produce ideas out of a vacuum. So I was thinking whether the current model could be extrapolated, could be extended. That means align the interests of IPS with that of the government. Not totally aligned, but a part of this will be aligned, is how to do it. And not be said by the public that you are actually a department of the ministry. I think revive the idea of political history of Singapore. IPS can work with LKY School, can work with other institutes, other think tanks to run such a course. Civil Service College has started to be brought in. Civil servants, not just the administrative civil servants, but service, but also the other parts, statutory boards and so on, do it. And of course, aim this at the young executives in the private sector. Also reach out to civil society. That's a very important component. And the other part, my second limb of my original mission is still very important. How do we design the future of Singapore? Singaporeans have different dreams. Then the key is how do you move in the same direction? Many younger Singaporeans do not know the history. They think Singapore can just carry on. We who belong to the older generations must understand the aspirations of the young. So I want to combine the two, history and this part. Both are very important. Where do we go from here? Where does our politics go from here? We need to modify, do we need to amend, do we need to add more what I call stabilizers to the system? See, but at the end of this is to work out something which is good for Singapore. Not good for the ruling party, you know. That is but good for Singapore. So I would like that part to be more debated by IPS.